Yeah. The last time I was on Zoom, I was doing a speed awareness course.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
You can do it via Zoom.
Well,
Yeah.
That's a bit ironic with the name Zoom as well, isn't it?
Britain. An ancient kingdom with legends of violence, cruelty, and torment in its blood. Join your hosts, Ross, John, and James, as they bravely tread where few would dare. Witness their journey into the horrific history of British horror. They are the General Witchfinders.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, goblins and ghouls, to the 20th episode, our second decade of the General Witchfinders podcast. I'm James in Bournemouth in southern England.
I'm John Pountney, and I'm still here in the south of Wales, which is in the south of Wales.
I'm Ross in Dorchester in southern England, and today we're going to cover Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy.
The Frenzy.
Alfred Hitchcock's The Frenzy.
The Alfred Hitchcock.
I dare say you are wondering why I am floating around London like this. I am on the famous Thames River, investigating a murder. Rivers can be very sinister places, and in my new film Frenzy, this river, you may say, was the scene of a very horrible murder.
It's a woman!
Another necktie murder.
Of course, one can never be sure where danger lurks. They tell me a dreadful crime was committed right in this building. My investigation next led me to this innocent alley, of which there are hundreds in London. But I don't think we should stay long. Something unpleasant is about to happen. Here is the scene of another horrible murder. This is the famous London wholesale fruit and vegetable market, Covent Garden. Here you may buy the fruits of evil and the horrors of vegetables. I've heard of a leg of lamb, a leg of chicken, but never a leg of potatoes.
What's wrong?
Look, she's wearing my tie. How'd you like my tie? How do you like it?
Frenzy is a 1972 British horror/thriller film directed by Alfred Hitchcock, aged at time of production 71. It's the penultimate feature of his extensive career. The screenplay, centered on a serial killer in contemporary London and the ex-RAF serviceman he implicates, was written by Anthony Shaffer, based on the 1966 novel Goodbye Piccadilly, Farewell Leicester Square by Arthur La Bern, who, in a letter to the editor of the Times, said he found Hitchcock's production and Shaffer's adaptation of his book appalling.
Oh.
The film The film stars John Finch, Alec McCowan, and Barry Foster, and features Billy Whitelaw, Anna Massey, Barbara Lee Hunt, Bernard Cribbins, and Vivian Merchant.
And TV's Clive Swift.
Yes. Produced the year before. Famously, we'll probably have to cut this bit out, but he's famously a miserable bastard, isn't he?
Yeah, we can leave that in because I think it's a general
It's
rule.
in public domain.
And he's dead.
Oh, well, there you go. Double hit. Produced the year before, The Curse of 1971 continued unabated as, along with poor Peter Cushing's wife's demise, Hitchcock's wife and longtime collaborator, Alma, had a stroke during production. As a result, some sequences were shot without Hitchcock on the set so he could tend to his wife. Oh. Michael Caine was Hitchcock's first choice for the role of Rusk, the main antagonist. But Caine thought the character was disgusting and said, I don't want to be associated. I can't even do a good Hitchcock. I'm really sorry.
I don't want to
be associated with the parts I've not been locked in an attic. Foster was cast after Hitchcock saw him in Twisted Nerve, which featured Frenzy co-star Billy Whitelaw.
Oh, that's a great film.
Yeah, Helen Mirren, who later in life played Hitchcock's wife, Alma Reville in Hitchcock, met with the director to discuss the role of Babs Milligan. Eventually, she rejected the role, and years later said she regretted doing so.
Who was it, James? I zoned out then.
Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren.
No way.
Yeah.
And so who was that? That was the one. That was the lady in the orange suit. And who plays her? I can't remember. Massey.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's her name? What's her first name?
Anna
Massey. Yes.
Anna Massey. Yeah.
So
did we get a college with someone called Anna Massey?
Anna Massey. Wasn't she in? That's not. There have been a number of Anna Masseys, I think. Wasn't there? Is there not another actor?
That's a good point, Cleves. I feel like I know that name.
Yeah, anyway.
So she was Raymond Massey's daughter, who's in Things to Come, and Daniel Massey's sister. Or it's the other way around, I can't remember.
Henry Mancini, who was originally hired as the film's composer, is quoted as saying, if the same film was made 10 years ago, it would have had twice the amount of music in it. After an enigmatic behind-the-scenes melodrama where Hitch was reported to have yelled, if I had wanted Bernard Herrmann, I would have hired him! The composer was fired and replaced by Ron Goodwin. The tagline for this movie was, Hitchcock's last masterpiece. This line would be prophetic, since this is now considered to be the last masterwork Alfred Hitchcock produced in his canon.
Well done, James. That was a long one.
A few things to point out, like before you go on a flight. Which version did you watch? Did you watch the free YouTube version?
Yes.
So the other version, and this is, I don't know anything about the background to this, but there appears to be two versions. Where the version I watched has got very different intro music.
Oh, so the one I watched, it was like a Norman Wisdom film.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. The
very
music is discordant.
Yeah.
It does not fit the tone at all.
No. So the one that I have watched and I've got on DVD is like with the opening shot is a bit like a tourist film.
Yeah,
that's
what I saw.
Which you expect Terry Savalas to start talking about, like Sheffield or something. Whereas, and there's another version which has got thriller in inverted commas music.
Ooh.
Really? So because I felt like on the version I watched, the music at the beginning was so different to the music at the end.
Yes.
Because at the beginning it was like you said, like a tourist thing. Yeah. Especially when there's around
pageant kind of music.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like
yeah, I expected it to sort of zoom in on to Norman Wisdom's milkman shop or something, you know.
His quivering bottom.
Yeah.
I can tell you a story about him.
Well, you did before, and we had to blink.
Oh, is it the same one?
Yeah, we had to beef it out. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Was it Sandy Toxvig?
Yes.
Yes. I was about to say.
Okay.
Eagle-eared listeners, we can now be able to go back and listen to earlier episodes and put two and two together without us implicating ourselves.
Yeah. I can't remember who told me the story now, so I shouldn't really repeat it. But what else was I going to say? I think we watched this on my urging because this is part of a loose trilogy, which isn't very loose because it's 3 films, which for me is this, Deathline and Dracula AD 1972. And in my head, they've all been set in the same fictional London.
Right.
But then watching this again for the first time in ages, I realised that one of the sets in this, when you first really see the two police officers, I think if it isn't the same set, it is part of the same bit of set from Dracula AD 1972, where you see the office of the police guy, which is the blinds, and then looking out the window, you see like an out of focus kind of landscape of London.
It gave me.
It looks exactly the same.
Yeah, and it gave me a similar sort of vibe to Deathline when I was saying this feels like what American Werewolf from London copied. You know, the whole idea, the whole thing when you've got like the cops trying to find out what's going on as well. You've got these almost like two films going on at once.
Well, you've got like a police procedural comedy of errors, which in this film, as we'll see, is the guy with his wife. The highlight or low light of the film, whichever way you come at it, really, and the food that he has to eat, which is disgusting.
So bizarre.
But I wondered if that was either, that was like a nod towards kind of like us saying, "Oh, the English have got dreadful cuisine."
Yeah.
Saying, having lived in Hollywood for years and having been told, "Oh God, you limeys have got dreadful cuisine," like him kind of going like that, like all right. And leaning into it, or if it was just something else entirely.
I love those sequences, and I think I could watch a whole film just of those two people, like him trying not to eat the food.
The bit when he waits till Shitty's room and spits out the pig's foot.
He does an amazing thing where he kind of coughs through his
fingers.
He makes his hand like a trumpet shape, and goes and it goes flying, which is brilliant. Apparently, the guy that played him, who I can't remember his name, it was a very, very respected theatre actor, we should probably say, who everyone loved, and they just thought he was brilliant, and I can't remember.
Alec McCowan.
Yeah, Alec McCowan. So he was a very well-loved man.
I'd never seen this film, and I was keen to watch it. And I purposely didn't look anything about it before we started it, and I expected it to have Sean Connery in it. So I don't know what film I was expecting to watch.
Like, he's going to turn up any minute. Yeah, sure.
That's Marnie, which is 1965, which is TP. So that's his last Hollywood kind of. I don't want to say epic, because that's also quite a weird film. There's some terrible bits where Tippi Hedren is riding a horse and it's back projection, and it just looks like the horse is covered in felt.
Well, I would say the beginning of this film, for me, sort of summed up that it felt like a very, and we've said this about some other films we've covered, it felt like the crossover between old style films and new style films. So the beginning when you had to sort of like, it must have been a helicopter going up the Thames, mustn't it? And it was going pretty low as well. And I was thinking, but sort of coming in and then having like this speech on the banks of the Thames, which looked very much like the spot where the TARDIS landed in Deep Breath when Piccadilly's first episode. But the way that they had like people talking over what the action was, it felt really old-fashioned.
Yeah, and that talking doing like a lot of the legwork in terms of the plot. I've written. I wonder if it's the necktie killer.
Yeah,
he's killed a lot of people recently. In that way that people don't talk.
Yeah,
like that Greek chorus.
And I felt like, well, this is quite old-fashioned. Yeah, and when I saw that, I thought, oh god, this is going to be bad.
I love the accents as well, because it's like, it's a necktie killer. And it's obvious that it's like really kind of souped up and kind of like over the top kind of Cockneyisms, which a lot of the film is like a kind of almost Dickensian kind of London in what was modern London then, isn't it? Which is what you've got to kind of remember.
Hitchcock's father was a market trader in Covent Garden. And Covent Garden wasn't like that anymore, and they put it back to what it looked like.
Yes.
Well, I was about
film.
to go. It's weird, but also as with so much of our 1970s stop-offs in Londons that we've had, it's been that thing of going, oh my God, look at what London used to be like. And then at the start, when they showed you, I thought, I could have sworn they'd taken the fruit and veg market out of Covent Garden by that point.
It was probably all derelict at that point. And when you look at pictures of Spitalfields from the 1960s, late 60s, it's just full of tramps. And it's like, it looks post-apocalyptic, and I think Covent Garden was probably the same at that point.
Yeah,
as well.
so I think it was part of Hitchcock trying to sort of call back to the London of his youth a little bit.
The nostalgic London of, rape, murder.
Jack the Ripper.
As they said earlier, they saw us like a good, juicy sex murder.
Oh, God, yes. So we open with a helicopter scene that flies in, and then you've got a kind of posh mayor or kind of dignitary
politician or something.
Giving a speech about how they're cleaning up the river, cleaning up pollution in the river, and then obviously people stop listening to him, and then the reveal is that there's a naked woman in the river who has been murdered and she's got a tie around her neck.
She looks like she's snorkeling.
Yeah. Then I've written jokes about rape, 2 question marks. It's just already, it's this kind of... Helen and I have been talking about this for a while now. We always have talking pictures on it, as you know. And films from the 40s and 50s are really kind of... they're well scripted, and the men and the women are very equal kind of protagonists in a lot of the films, like the Powell and Pressburger films. And then you see a lot of the 60s films where it just... And I think we talked about this before with like Carry On Cabby, where a lot of the sexuality in the films becomes really skewed and distorted and weird.
I think it's because they're suddenly allowed to do some more of that stuff, and then. But
I don't know if it's effective or even realistic that it suddenly becomes just really weird and over the top. And this film, it really is very much that all the way through. You're just like, what is this kind of bizarre treatment of women where, it's just like, oh, women, oh God. Where they're in the pub at the start, these 2 kind of judges or solicitors or barristers are talking about the murders.
The doctors, aren't they?
Yeah, is that what they are? And then the landlady is like, oh, I've heard that he rapes them before he kills them. And it's just like,
and he goes on and he says, I've written it down, there's got to be some silver lining, isn't there? As if they get a good scene before they get killed, so they can enjoy that.
Oh my God. And it's just like, within 10, 15, 20 years, films have gone from being actually quite progressive to being really quite turgid and kind of sexist claptrap. And I think British cinema from this point actually went really downhill following this kind of thing, where it was like, to get people into the cinemas, we need to get more and more nudity, more and more sex and violence into the films. And that's not actually what 99% of people, they do just want to watch a film that makes sense and has a story. And that's what this whole film made me think, that it veers wildly between a really interesting, good film with really dark humour to something that is kind of almost discountable because it's so distasteful. And I found it really strange from the beginning because I haven't watched it for years. And it just looks so old now, doesn't it?
When I was watching it, I watched it a second time today, and I was thinking, if I could turn the colour down on YouTube, I wouldn't mind watching it in black and white.
Yeah. But if you consider that it was made more recently than the Beatles in Get Back, which everyone's talking about at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, that looks really fresh. And the way they're talking to each other looks really just normal and everything. And then you've got this film where the dialogue is like Dickensian. It's just really weird.
I feel like there was a strange sort of point where a lot of stuff had to be implied. So you had to imply that they were having sex. But then every so often they thought, okay, well, we can show a boob here. So they really went to town with showing the boob. Anyway, let's get back to the plot. So what happened after they found the body in the water? And we see Hitch in the crowd.
Yeah,
in the crowd.
He stood there. Yes. We then kind of move over to a very vibrant looking Covent Garden, which, as we've discussed already, is probably fake. And I've written, this is the London of Dracula AD 1972. Yeah. Because you see these pubs and you see, it's not the same swinging London, but it's still that kind of vibe, isn't it? The colours are very similar. And then you're introduced to Jean Marsh with her big Deirdre Rashid glasses. who is the secretary of. I mean, there's quite a lot of characters in this, isn't there? So you've got the main guy, the hero, who isn't much of a hero.
Dick, isn't it?
Well, I was going to say
that's my thought about him. I don't. Is his name Dick?
I think his name is Dick. Is it?
So he's John Finch.
Yeah, Dick Finch.
Yes.
Oh no, John Finch.
John
Finch. I don't know. I don't know. Where I got Dick from then. Anyway.
But he all the way through, he plays this as Withnail, doesn't he? From Withnail and I. The way he delivers a lot of the lines is like, I'm a trained actor reduced to the status of a bum.
Absolutely. Well, I wrote, and it's no secret that I have trod the boards from time to time, and I've done a bit of back. I've dipped my toes in the swirling waters of amateur dramatics, darling. But
yes,
I would say that like his role, as I watched it, I was like, this is like me acting all the way through. It was kind of like the over. Like at one point, he went, "Christ, damn it to hell, 20-1." And I'm not joking. If you want to rewatch it, that is
it could have been Michael Bryan, couldn't it?
It was just like ridiculous overreacting the whole time.
Well, I think that was a bit in the film where they were trying to make out that he potentially could be the killer. So they have lots of people
all over the show.
Yeah, they keep talking about being able to not be able to control their emotions, being able to go into fits of rage and all that.
But that was very overcooked, wasn't it? And it was. I think that was. Can I just say that Anthony Shaffer was also wrote The Wicker Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't realise
that was I found that very interesting because I saw the name at the start and I was like, oh, I know that name.
Well, knowing nothing of it, I fell for the thing at the beginning where they were setting up to be him. Because when they said, the necktie killer, they cut to him putting his tie on in the pub and all that kind of stuff. I was like, oh,
yeah. Because I knew when I first saw it who the killer was, so I've never really come to it fresh eyes. So that's quite interesting actually, and I think watching it now that kind of does work well. So you're introduced to like quite a mishmash of characters. You've got Barry Foster, who's the kind of kindly, your Uncle Bob, who's the kind of grosser. He's quite a flash guy, isn't he? Then you've got,
kind of implies that he's involved with a little bit of sort of underground sort of criminality and stuff. I found he was like a cross between John Pertwee and Peter O'Toole.
He's a bit of a funny handshakes kind of guy, isn't he? And then you're introduced also to John Finch, who is on kind of nominal hero, but he isn't much of a hero. He works for Cribbins in a pub. He's helping himself, and then basically Cribbins doesn't like what he sees, and
Cribbins takes any opportunity to become a bastard, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a bastard, and he's out on his ear basically.
I don't care that you're a war hero.
Yeah.
But this guy, looking at him, I don't think he's old enough to have been in. I think is it Suez?
The Suez, right? They indicate that he was involved
there's no way he could have been in the Suez crisis because that was 55 or something. So that's 17 years before.
Well, we don't know when this film is set, do we? Because if Covent Garden is still active, so it could be.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, yeah.
But it was weird seeing Cribbins say bastard and also saying he's more often pulling your tits rather than pulling points.
But the whole time he was doing that, because of the era burn of Cribbins. Right, said Fred. Wait,
no, I got something to show you.
And also,
he said, righto.
Is he in the Railway Children as well?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So I think that's the same era, isn't it? What's he got?
It's large, whatever it is.
Yeah. This is my brother got this for my birthday.
This
is the Mr. Shifter album.
Wow!
Bernard Cribbins telling the stories of the PG Tips Monkeys along with
cancelled.
Various different songs. Cyril, the world's greatest cyclist. The Culpepers on their Spanish holiday. Mr. Shifter, the Removal Man.
Wow!
Look at that.
That must have been an electric day in London's Tin Pan Alley, I'm imagining, and that was recorded in 5 minutes.
I was going to say, is that not the same Mr. Shifter that sold the songs when we were just 50? But I think that's Mr. Sifter.
Snifter.
So then we're introduced to then
Babs
John
Milligan
Finch-
as well, who's works in the pub.
So she's his kind of girlfriend.
Well, she's the one who accuses Bernard Cribbin of always fingering her.
Yeah. Like, some of the lines in this part are so weird. Like, what does that mean? I presume it doesn't mean the obvious thing that it means.
No.
But is that to do with, like,
just touching her up, I imagine.
pinching a
No. As in kind of blaming her for things.
But, yeah.
Like, you've been, like
Put
the
the
police.
finger
Oh,
on
yeah.
her.
Yeah, that's how I read it.
That's what I was desperately hoping. So on being, there's quite a lot of plot, so I think we're going to have to whiz through this, aren't we?
Yeah.
So basically, John Finch then whizzes over to see his ex-wife somewhere in London, who has got a dating agency or marriage agency, which really reminds me of the Carry On film where Sid and Hattie Jakes have got a computer that lines people up. I can't think what it's called. Carry On Loving, probably.
Yeah.
Carry On Getting Married or Carry On whatever. So then he goes in there, he meets Jean Marsh. Jean Marsh has obviously got a real problem with... she's the secretary. She's obviously got a real problem with men. She goes out for lunch and then she hears that they're arguing, and she draws the wrong conclusion, basically. So then he goes off. He has a meal with his ex-wife. He's rude to the waitress, and at one point he gets so angry that he crushes a glass in his hand, which is the most angry I've ever seen anyone in a film, besides Superman, when he crushes the... does he crush a snooker ball? And he flicks a peanut and he breaks a bottle or something, doesn't he?
In Superman 3.
Yeah, is that the bad Superman?
Bad, and he's flicking the peanuts and smashing the mirrors behind the thing.
Yeah.
I see, yeah.
Mirrors?
Yes.
It's the one where he crushes a snooker ball as well.
And blows it into someone's face, yeah.
Yes.
But he also crushes a piece of coal to make a diamond in Superman 3.
I probably haven't seen those films for 30 years, but that's all it reminded me of. So, obviously, what the film, and as Cleaver has said here, what the film is trying to do at this point is create this kind of tissue of circumstance that you can believe that John Finch is the killer. But then pretty much straight away then you have the situation where he goes off. I think he spends the night in the Salvation Army,
which is mad. As if that, I was like, that's a bygone era. That's gone.
Oh, it reminded me of Down and Out in was it Down Like in London and Paris with
what is it? Paris,
George Orwell.
George Orwell.
Paris?
Yeah, which is an amazing book, but also incredibly harrowing.
Isn't it fascinating to think that was it, like the early 70s? They were still, but actually in itself, it's quite a good idea that homeless people actually did have somewhere to go.
I like those blankets. I'd like one of those blankets.
Now, if someone thought up the idea, they'd be like, "Wow, this is an amazing idea!" Like these people can all sleep in a room.
And while he's laying there, an old tramp attempts to pick his pocket, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Thus,
but that tramp later on has his balls bitten off by a rat in James Herbert's The Rat. And then he gets his head smashed in by an angry female tramp.
Yeah,
I can't even remember what happened in that sequence now, but you know the sequence.
I think she just says they can have sex with them, but then ridicules them because they can't get it up, and then they.
Does she chop his willy off, or just
a rat just gnaws it off? And they mention some kind of booze they drink, which is like red wine mixed with meths, and it's got a special name.
Ooh,
oh God, that's a potent sounding mix, isn't it? I think Charlotte Church used to drink that one. She used to come into Jumping Jack. Is that a cheeky Vimto? True story.
All right. That's up there with. I'll never forget the one night we went to see a gig in town at the what is for all intents and purposes the Student Union venue.
Yes.
And when we went in there, I was like, "Oh, get a drink in." And on tap they had hooch.
Ooh.
And I was so aghast. Yeah. Oh. I was like, hooch on tap.
Just like.
And then I was like, I've got to have one. Yeah, I've got to try one. And just as I was drinking it, I was like, when we were like 16, 17, this is like, yeah, hooch. Where I was drinking it.
Just like sweet acid.
Yeah. It really makes it the back of your throat. But I remember when I went to the Cash and Carry when Hooch came out, that it was like one pack per off license. We had to sort of
rationing
it. Yeah.
Rationing Hooch.
Yeah, I was allowed to have one for my 17th birthday. I think they let me have one to take home.
I think I only ever drank some, and it was like it stayed in the back of your throat like vomit.
Yeah, you have to keep doing stringy spit.
Acid. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they brought out Two Dogs, which was like the sort of a similar one. And then
oh god, we used to have VK in Jack's, and it would always like make me laugh that like where it would be spilt onto like surfaces, like wood surfaces, like at the end of the night, people would wipe it up and it would take the varnish off the tables, and it literally was like boring through the wood. It was like alien blood.
That's what they were brewing in those big vats in Quatermass too, wasn't it?
Yeah. It burns. It's food and it burns.
But I could get 2 bottles of it for £2.
We gotta get them all in before like 9 o'clock, so you just line them all up.
£1 to get in, and then like 5 bottles of BK Blue.
Yeah.
Oh
Jesus
God.
And then the manager, Adrian, would have turned up the thermostat to 90 degrees, so everyone was like sweating pints in there so they could drink more.
Well, I remember going to the Jacks in Bournemouth, and for ages, like the fire alarm was just going off in there, and it was just still dark. It's just like the flashing light and the and they just put on the theme to Baywatch again.
People running in slow motion.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so then on drinks, when he the next day he goes into a pub, doesn't he? And this is one of my large notes.
Oh yes,
he goes. I want a brandy. Yeah. No, come on, put more than that in there. Once again, in his bad overacting.
But with Nell again, isn't it? It's like ice in the cider.
I want a triple brandy, which he then brings him back. And then he pays with £1 and gets change. Wow. Triple brandy change for £1, doesn't it?
The days of pound notes. Imagine the kids these days that pay for everything with their phones. Giving them pound notes to deal with.
Yeah. I liked it when he screwed up his £5 notes to Chuck and Bernie Cribbin's face.
I remember pound notes, and I remember half pennies as well.
Yes.
So I'm just on the cusp of real kind of ancientness. I've just realised that I've noted down the main character is called Dick Blaney.
Yeah.
So it's not Richard Blaney then, as IMDb says. I'm sure. Yeah, I thought it was called Dick as well.
Dick. Yeah, there's always a Dick in films like this, isn't there? So what happens then is quite neatly we have established that the world is going to see Dick Blaney as the baddie. And then we cut to the next day when his ex-wife has gone into her job, and then Bob comes in, Uncle Bob, who is the villain, who is the brilliantly horrible, creepy Barry Foster in this, and
Van der Valk.
TV's Van der Valk.
He's Van der Valk,
and I can't imagine anyone taking on this character these days for fear that they'd be typecast as a.
You can see why Michael Caine turned it down.
Because he's absolutely.
I find this bloody disgusting. That's right.
That's better. Well done.
He has absolutely. I mean, playing a rapist. There's. I don't know how you could play it that he's got any remitting features, but he is a really toe-curlingly disgusting character.
He is
always picking his teeth.
And
he's picking his teeth, and
Hitchcock. When we see him, kind of, we see him murdering a character, and his modus operandi is to go, "Oh, lovely, lovely, Will be lovely all the way through, isn't it? That's kind of like he's like the lovely necktie killer,
which does remind me slightly of "Mind the Doors." Mind the doors.
Yeah, he didn't say that as he came though.
No. Well, you don't know. So he goes into the marriage agency, and I don't know if we are meant to think or even care at this point that he has anything to do with Dick Blaney in terms of implicating Dick Blaney.
No, I think he's been going to this place looking for people who are into S&M, basically. That's
yes.
They can't find any for him.
But they weren't allowed to say that.
Right?
No.
Yes. So they call him Mr. Robinson in inverted commas, and they say that he's looking for women with certain peculiarities in inverted commas.
There's no fet life back then.
Yeah, they're not going to be interested in people like you. And I thought that scene was really well scripted and really well put together. I've written here, sex is like a constant theme of disgrace. I don't know if that's autobiographical or
it's the revelation.
Yeah. You can't really it's just incredibly uncomfortable viewing from whatever way you look at it. And I think that his aim had always been to depict a rape scene, and I don't really know why.
Because he's a weirdo. Yeah. And it felt like he was trying to outdo the shower scene a little bit because he could show more, but I don't think it gave any more. And there was a weird, there's a weird bit where they're kind of implying that he's actually penetrating her, but they can't do it too much, and therefore it makes it feel weird and what's going on.
You never see him undo his trousers.
Exactly. So he's dry humping her.
Yeah.
And then she's like quoting some poem while it's happening as well.
Yes. That's very odd. That's very kind of Hitchcockian, and that was the only kind of angle of it that I thought kind of worked. But I thought in general it was just deeply unpleasant.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
And that might be his aim, but it's like
I suppose it is an unpleasant thing to happen.
It's not. Yeah, it's just not very. You can't really, it's not entertaining.
You didn't need to show it, basically.
No, not at all.
You can convey the horror of that event without filming it and framing it in the way that he.
And especially as the amount of humour in this film as well. It kind of makes it feel a little bit strange.
Yeah. You can literally have him close the door.
What they do with another killing later on.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is amazing and which works really, really well. When he takes Babs into the flat, and then you have this kind of tracking shot that pulls all the way out of the, and then the silence moves from the silence to the kind of bustle of the outside.
Yes,
that's absolutely, and that's pure.
That's
Hitchcock.
The best
bit. Yeah.
Looking online as well, that looks like it's one shot, but it's two.
Yes, there is an edit as someone walks past. Yeah. We were watching a film on Talking Pictures the other day, which was called Young and Innocent. And I was like, oh God, I've never heard of this. It's a terrible title. And I was watching it. And it wasn't very good. And then there's this amazing crane shot where the camera goes all the way through this party. And then it comes in. It comes in and in and in on this guy's face who's playing the drums. But the trouble is, the whole band are blackface.
Oh no!
So you can't show this anymore. But the whole band are like Al Jolson blackface. So they've got white gloves on and they've got the proper like Al Jolson stuff. But the camera comes right in on the guy's face and then he starts twitching. And I was like, I'm sure this is ripping off Hitchcock. But when I looked it up, it actually is a Hitchcock film.
Wow.
And it was one of his last films he made before he went to Hollywood. And it's pure Hitchcock. And when you see that kind of thing where he plays with this idea of going from this kind of wide scene where you can't really guess what the kind of focus is, and then it goes in, and then you end up literally on a close-up of a guy's face from a really wide party. In Frenzy, he does the opposite, doesn't he? He shows them go into the flat, then the camera withdraws, it goes all the way down the stairs, and then it comes out into Covent Garden, and then the sound lifts, and you hear the kind of whoa, apples and pears and
Well, but they do a similar thing in this one as well. They come out of the dating agency as well, don't they?
which is excellent.
Yes.
And
The idea of the modus was that, like, the fear of something horrific or something awful like that is going on
behind doors.
any closed curtain that you're walking by, and that the city masks
which is the feeling I get every time I go to Bournemouth. Because I always feel like something horrible's happening in Bournemouth. It's got
den of iniquity.
That's the strap line for this podcast. I always feel something horrible is happening in Bournemouth. And there's a picture of that spaceship going up and down on the. Is there a spaceship that goes up and down on a tower or something?
That's in Weymouth. That was the Weymouth Eye they had for the Olympics.
When she dies, there's a very weird effect where they kind of use a still of her dead.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really work because it's, with her tongues hanging out, and it just looks very strange. Then he, and it shows the era that it's in, he goes over to her table and takes a bite out of an apple.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it's like any copper now would be like,
exactly,
check the DNA.
Yeah, left jizz everywhere, bit of apple.
This is one of the things that one of my notes I've put. Now, I know that famously they say that all psychopaths or all serial killers want to be caught. That's the whole thing. It's that, please stop me before I kill again. But what I put is that he's a shambles. He's like, he'd be caught in about 30 seconds. Like, like, even though they say, lots of people come in and out of that office, so you won't be able to get any prints. Well, how about you get all the fucking fingerprints off of the door and then eliminate the suspects one at a time, for crying out loud? And then you're right, he's taken a bite out of the apple. Yeah. He would have touched it and he's like, but the money's gone from her bag. Fingerprint the fucking bag.
Well, you can't. The police have like rubbing their hands all over it.
Yeah.
And
we watched a very good Tales of the Unexpected today, where Susan George kills her husband with a frozen leg of lamb.
Wow.
So she hits him over the head, and then the chief kind of investigating officer is Brian Blessed, who's really low key for Brian Blessed. But then the kind of reveal is that she cooks the lamb and gives it to all the policemen so they eat the evidence. But it's like, would police sit down and say yes to a meal in the crime scene? It's just bizarre. It's a great idea, but as if they would actually do that in real life. Be like, that leg of lamb is, this guy's just been bludgeoned over the head with a blunt instrument.
It's been suggested we do an episode or two of Tales of the Unexpected.
Oh, yes, I'd like to do that.
Yeah. Where did you watch it, John?
It's on Sky Arts in the afternoon.
Okay.
There's always like a double header. We should do some of the Hammer House of Horror TV series as well.
That's on BritBox, so we could do that.
There's some classics. Diana Dawes as a werewolf.
That's awful, that one. I hated
the one, the black fingernail one as well, which is my favourite.
Any of the Roald Dahl ones?
Yeah. The Roald Dahl ones are the best with Tales of the Unexpected, because you always get the intro of him sat in his dressing gown, which is really weird. Yeah. Like,
I've often thought that murder is a bad evening between friends, something like that to start with. And by the way, I hate the Jews. Oh no. I remember, by the way, we've gone very off beam tonight, but it doesn't matter. But I remember at some point when I was an undergraduate, saying at university, Roald Dahl was massively anti-Semitic, and loads of people going, no, he wasn't. Oh, don't say that about Roald Dahl. I'm like, I'm telling you, the twit is just basically out and out anti-Semitism. For years, I felt like I carried this cross, and I think like when I worked at Borders as well, I said to people, "You do realize he's a massive
hating the Jews."
Who's that? You do realize he's a massive anti-Semite, and then recently it's come out. He, his family have gone, we do have to apologise for the fact he was. I was like, I fucking told everyone this. Anyway, thank you. I got that off my chest now. I knew it.
Walked past his house the other day in Llandaff in Cardiff.
Llandaff.
So anyway,
that's where Matt Smith had his first adventure.
Yeah, well, literally, it is just by there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then there is a very Hitchcockian and very effective thing where, as you say, the camera withdraws from what's happening and it just stays on the street, and it stays on the street for ages. Two women walk past. Jean Marsh goes in. You don't cut away. Nothing happens. And then you hear the scream and she's obviously found the body.
Which is amazing. But for me, it's like that murder. It's like, that made me feel like this is just like really low level titillation. Horrible. I don't know what it is. And then it cuts to that, and I think this is one of the best films I've ever seen. And it had that kind of real sort of like dichotomy for me, like where it jumps backwards and forwards to me, thinking this is amazing, to thinking, oh, this is
which for me, this film is the ultimate mashup of, like I said, like you've got the 40s and 50s films, which are really sophisticated, and then you've got the 60s and 70s films, which are literally the pits where like any twat would fund a film that had got some sex kitten in, and it would there'd be no story. There was one on the other night, Virgin Witch, which I remember getting out when we were in college, and just thinking, this is one of the worst films I've ever seen. And it's got, it's just pseudo supernatural rubbish. But the main thing that's good about it, and when I say good, it's in inverted commas, is that it's Vicky Michelle and whoever her sister is, who later found fame in TV's Hello Hello as the Virgin Witches. So
I did tell you once I worked with someone who I looked on their browser history, and there was just like loads of like Vicky Michelle topless pictures on there.
So when you say you worked with someone, do you mean I worked with this guy called Ross Cleaver?
No, it's someone you know. I always preferred Mimi LeBlanc myself.
Mimi LeBlanc. So my from here, my notes are quite sporadic because it's quite it's a long film, but it's also packed with quite a lot of plot.
Yeah. So he goes off. He takes Babs off to a hotel. He's telling about how his coat is stinking of
amazing.
Like tramps.
These scenes are amazing.
Which made me feel like they would all stink anyway, because none of them had showers. So, and it feels like people just wore the same clothes all over and over and over again.
He literally wears the same clothes for the whole fucking
and they're
film.
all smoking as well. So, like, doesn't matter if you've been to a tramps sort of a hostel. You fucking stink anyway, mate. They go to the hotel. They do a whole thing about...
And they mention his weird jacket.
Yes.
Oh, his jacket. I love that. These two people. So, like the bellboy, who's like 100, and like the woman, the receptionist.
Yeah, and they kind of like, he talks about like he hates the lust of men as well. So it's sort of like implied that he might be gay as well. And
yes,
that's good.
So Dick gives his name as Mr. Oscar Wilde. And this it's very like a 1930s kind of farce, where they're looking for a room, and the only room that they can be given is called the Cupid room. And then later on, when they think a murder has happened in there, the woman is like, not in the Cupid room. So one thing I did notice with that scene as well, a bus goes past, and on the bus is advertised Shamborsi yogurts.
Oh, nice.
I had no idea that Shamborsi yogurts were in the UK so early. I would have thought that they were in 1980s.
I was just going to say, Beck, this is, John, this is an example, because Beck's been listening to our podcast while she's been wrapping presents today. And she came and I what do you think? The main takeaway she had was that John is incredibly observant and be an expert witness in a crime, because you pick up the smallest details and can recall them very well.
Shamborsi. So you had the hippopotamus, which I think was Shamborsi, wasn't it? Which was the chocolate. I think that was the chocolate. Yes. So that would have been 86 to 88, something like that. I had no idea that Shamborsi was, but I don't think you can get Shamborsi now in the UK, which is quite sad. French, it's Brexit.
I'm not a yogurt fan, so this is not an area of my expertise.
You like a whipped mousse, surely, don't you?
No, I'm not a dessert fan.
Oh, really? Anyway, he sends his clothes off to be cleaned, and obviously this again becomes part of the tissue of the conspiracy, doesn't it? That he wants his clothes clean. Then it turns out they've escaped, and there's a bit of a confrontation with Babs in the park, and he manages to
it's in the newspaper that they want to question
him. Yes. So he manages to convince Bab that he's not the murderer, And then, bizarrely, out of nowhere, we're introduced to TV's Clive Swift and Billy Whitelaw, who it just looks to me like Billy Whitelaw's in it, because it's like, well, Alfred Hitchcock's in town making a film. Do you want to be in it? And it's like, we'll write you a scene in. Yeah. And then that's it, isn't it? There's no other reason for it to be in the film. Clive Swift does nothing. He basically plays Richard Bouquet.
Yeah,
he's basically got a
I got a swingers vibe off them myself.
Yeah, big swingers vibe. So they live in a posh block of flats. They're trying to, Richard Bouquet wants to look after Dick, but his wife doesn't want to. Billy Whitelaw doesn't want Dick hanging around.
Well, Babs goes back to get her stuff, because they say they could run away to France with them because they don't need a passport to do a day trip to France. Yeah. When she goes back, she has a confrontation with Bernard Cribbins, who drops in that
pulling her tits.
Yeah, tries fingering her and pulling her tits and calls Dick a bastard. But then Bobby Rusk offers to go and get her stuff for her. And
who's Bobby Rusk?
That's Robert Rusk.
Oh, I was thinking of what's his name, Bobby Crush. Bobby
on the piano.
Yeah. He's not in this film, thank God. Yes, that's right, Cleves. Go on, carry on.
Bobby Rusk offers to put her up for the night while she's waiting to go off to France.
Obviously, because that's what happens.
Yeah. He said no strings attached, but as he takes her up to the stairs, he says, "You're my kind of girl," which is what he said to the other girl just before he raped and murdered her. So that we know.
And that's when we have the brilliant masterpiece shot where the 71 or 72-year-old, whatever you said, Hitchcock still has it, and he does the withdraw of the camera down the stairs and out into the. But then we are introduced then to our police officers, and I've written Michael Sheard, TV's Michael Sheard, ? So TV's Grange Hill's Mr. Bronson and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusades Adolf Hitler. Michael Sheard, I'm sure, is in one scene leaning on a bar.
Oh, he's not on IMDb.
He's not.
He could have been.
And Admiral Ozzel from Empire Strikes Back.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes. I think there's one scene where he's leaning on a bar in this era.
He's not listed, but it could be him. John, can you name what Doctor Who's he was in as well?
Oh, he was one with Sylvester McCoy. I remember him.
Pyramids of Mars. He's in.
Yeah.
He's Remembrance of the Daleks.
He's the headmaster. Yeah. I feel sorry for him in Remembrance of the Dalek, actually. So
was he in Spearhead from Space, John?
No. He wasn't. I think that's pre-Michael Sheard's time.
Oh, okay.
I heard John Culshaw on Nahal on 5 Live today.
What, Neverending Stories Nahal?
Is there someone called that in Neverending Stories?
No, I was getting mixed up with the guy who sang it.
Lamal, Ross. Lamal. From Kajagoogoo.
So, you know who John Culshaw is, obviously.
Yes, we do.
The impression. So he started for no reason doing an impression of Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier from TV's Doctor Who. And while I was driving along, it brought tears to my eyes to hear Nicholas Courtney's, even an approximation of Nicholas Courtney's voice to the nation. And I just thought, what a wonderful thing to hear someone pretending to be Nicholas Courtney, like 50 years after that character even was on TV. Mm-hmm. All I've got it written now is stuff like, oh, balls, silence, Bob, and then you've got the whole of your life ahead of you.
You know, sometimes how weirdly we are in sync. Because just to show you that I'm not making this up, you can see that at the start of this, I was going to say, out of all the films we've done, this is the one that I did the fewest amount of notes on. And you can see that from my notes that it says 55 minutes in and I'm struggling.
So why are you struggling, James? You just didn't care about it, or?
Well, you know, apart from the things which we've already kind of highlighted, that whole thing of, look, 70s London versus Hitchcock, you know, kind of pulling out a couple of the classic Hitchcock moves, as said, But then, as John totally correctly says as well, the weird treatment of sex in this film is all a bit like weirdly distasteful. And what I found was there were elements to it which were very clever in the same way that, when you watch Psycho, Psycho starts off as this total other film and you think it's all going to be about Janet Leigh. It's not about... And it's the same with this one. I thought if this was a film made for a more modern audience, the whole thing would be someone has set this man up. Who has set him up? Who is the real... And the whole journey of the film would be uncovering who is the real serial killer.
Yes.
Whereas with this, Hitchcock very early on goes, here's your murderer.
Yeah.
Here he is.
Yeah.
And so it ends up being this weird kind of dual film, as you said, where on one hand, it's all about Van der Valk being a serial killer. And featuring the which we'll get onto, I think, in a bit, the bit on the back of the potato.
That's my favourite bit. That's my favourite bit.
But felt like it was from a different film almost.
Yeah.
And then a man trying to prove his innocence. They felt like two entirely separate films.
I quite like that.
The issue
I don't know
is
what to say about this.
Yeah, the issue is with the guy that's trying to prove his innocence is that you literally couldn't care less about him.
Yeah,
because he's a really miserable, self-obsessed git.
I'd like his haircut though. I'd love to have his hair.
He's another one with quite a bad acne-scarred face who you just think, how did this guy get famous?
Yeah.
I wondered if they wanted Oliver Reed. It felt like it was a role that Oliver Reed would have
be
just eaten
Oliver
up.
Reed and Michael Caine in Frenzy. That would have been
TV's Oliver Reed.
And I put down the two things that they said before his ex-wife murders him. She says, look, you're a good man and, you were okay. And I put down that the two things that he tried getting going that didn't work out was the roadhouse, the stables. those are his two failed projects.
Yes. I love
really
that part.
And the council giving close his stables down.
Yeah.
Did he punch the horse like that woman did in the news at the moment?
I absolutely loved that part.
Or the Newcastle United fan that time who punched a horse.
I think I probably punched my pony once because he bit me very badly through the back of my jacket. And
so around about the same time your dad was kicked by a cow.
Oh, he wasn't.
When animals attack.
Yeah, he's been kicked by a cow many times. He had a tractor go over his foot once, and his welly was full of blood.
Ooh,
sorry.
So the soup. So then we have the soup. The soup that the wife... Oh, God,
he's gone.
Oh, Christ.
He's possessed again, John.
Oh, sorry. I'm not...
So then we have the scene with the soup. And I think, again, the wife and the husband, the wife and the main police officer, who's... Their names kind of aren't really important, are they? But they're like in a separate film again, and I think I'd rather watch a film with them, which is like...
Chief Inspector Tim Oxford and Mrs. Oxford.
Oh, I don't ever hear anyone call him Tim Oxford in this film.
No.
I just kind of think that a film where she is like serving him like people she's murdered and he's eating dead bodies is another, film on its own.
Far more interesting.
Oh, that's a good film. Let's watch that.
So then we have the body in the truck sequence.
Yeah, so let's not go over that too soon because basically...
I think we're at that sequence, aren't we?
Yeah, basically he realises that his very distinctive typing, which he's been picking his teeth in with disgustingly
all the way through
the film,
fucking film,
is in... he's left that evidence with the body, which he's put in the back of a potato...
Who is Babs, who is the girlfriend of...
Okay, if he doesn't want it to be caught, don't have anything to do with fruit and veg with disposing of the bodies, because he's basically put it in a potato van. So he has to get in the back of the potato van, and there's some evidence on there could reveal who he is.
Implicate him.
Yeah, implicate us. I was trying to skirt around.
Fumble for a bit like Bob.
Exactly, lovely. So he gets in the back of the van, and there's... Yeah, it's him trying to get this out of, and that was one of my favourite parts of it. I think it's a very memorable set piece
It's a very good set piece. For some reason, I don't know why he thinks it's a good idea to put a body in a potato bag.
Potato van. It's
in
weird.
the back of a truck going to up north somewhere. But he also dresses up like Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins to do it. He's got different clothes on to put this bag in the back of the potato. It's like a Bedford lorry going up north somewhere, isn't it? Is it Michael Sheard, actually, who is the guy that talks about his potato business? That
yeah.
Transport is, it's so expensive. The transport, it's killing my business. Potatoes is an idiot.
It's like Tim Burgess complaining about the markup on vinyl.
Yes. So it's brilliant. A tour de force, and it's
strangely funny as well. But also, it's them putting you in, because at that point you kind of start rooting for the murderer.
Yes,
you want him to find the typing.
No, I know. At no point. I was really hoping that he was going to be that kind of like he was going to fail to do it, and then that would end up being the piece of evidence that implicates him later on. But
it's only because you wanted the film to end.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I think that it's not necessarily that you are rooting for him, but there's a kind of, the way it's cut is implying that it's going in that direction, and you should kind of feel for him in this predicament. But it's like, you're not going to feel for him because he's a rapist and a murderer. And I think that it's quite nuanced. And again, this film wouldn't get made today because I don't think people would be able to deal with a nuanced kind of thing where it's like you're kind of questioning yourself for kind of identifying with a murderer.
Yeah, and also you kind of have like the humour around him breaking the fingers.
No, not at all.
And implying that he might cut her fingers off, but he's actually going to prise them apart with his knife, which is like getting broken.
He breaks his penknife, and then he breaks each finger, and it's all very grotesque. But then the truck stops in like a truck stop kind of place. Yeah. The kind of calf that you don't see anymore for long distance lorry drivers, which is because
we got weight brakes.
It's a shame that you don't see those anymore. I used to love seeing those on like the A1 or
I can see you running one of those, John.
Oh, I'd love to. Jukebox, frying some eggs,
John's place,
medium wave radio, crackling away. So they pull in there. He gets out. He manages to kind of to go in there and infiltrate his way into there. The lorry drives off, and then I think does the lorry then drive past some policemen in like a Rover P6 or something, and they see like the woman's leg hanging out.
Legs hanging out. Yeah. They arrest our protagonist. He gets arrested, and then in quite a fast sequence, the evidence is stacked up against him.
Yeah,
he is sent down for murder. Or then in one of the most ridiculous bits, he then goes, "I know it was you, Van der Valk," or whatever the guy's name was. Well,
Bobby Crush.
So he's basically, but it was you, Bobby Crush, and he's declaring in court it was this guy who murdered him. And one of my last notes, I thought, surely someone would look into this.
Yeah.
Surely someone would go, why
is
he? Yeah, but not to,
That's just before another great Hitchcock thing where you don't hear any of the sound from the court.
Yes. The door closes behind someone and then it's just silent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is very clever, and I really like that part. And then he's taken down.
But as he's taken down, he swears vengeance, doesn't he? He's like, "I'll get you." And then while he's in prison, we see that our policeman, who's still having to eat abysmal food served to him by his wife, kind of expresses doubts. He's like, "Oh, something's a bit funny about this case. I'm not too sure about it," and starts investigating things himself.
Just like the police do all the time. They
time.
I have got someone.
Yeah.
I'm going to carry on investigating.
And they would certainly discuss it with their wives.
Yeah.
These days, a true crime podcast would pick up his story and get released. But in order to get out,
episodes.
Yeah, he the bad actor, the Toast of London, throws his name. He is though, isn't he? He's very Toast of London. To get out of prison, he throws himself down the stairs in prison in a really weird scene.
Norman Stanley Fletcher.
And then goes into a carry on matron film.
That part is amazing, where it's so carry on, or like Doctor in Distress, or not Doctor in Distress.
It was a cold, wet night in November, 22 years ago.
There was a police box in a junkyard. We didn't know where it would go.
An old man took two teachers into time and space.
It started all the legend that no other could replace. Doctor in distress, let's all answer his SOS. Doctor in distress.
Doctor Who, not Doctor Who, Doctor, oh God.
Doctor in the House?
Dirk Bogarde. So those films where it's like, James Robertson Justice or something, but so he's in bed with all the crooks, and for some reason, he's managed to win over the crooks to drug the guards on the hospital ward. And then all he does, besides the fact he's only wearing pajamas, is put a lab coat on, and then he manages to escape from the hospital, which is amazing. Then he manages to get into a car and start it just by touching two wires together.
Yeah.
It's
as
brilliant.
people could do.
Then speeds off really, really fast.
Yeah.
Not raise any suspicion at all.
Yeah.
So like he get the guy who's eating the pig's foot.
Yeah.
Flops it out through the little trumpet, like we said.
Yeah.
Because he gets a phone call saying he's escaped. I know where he's going. He's going to Valdevox's house. He rushes off there. What's his name? Dick gets there before them. Goes up. As all the way through this film, can just walk into this Valdevox's house. Because he never locks the front door.
No one locked a door in London in the 70s.
If I was murdering someone, I certainly wouldn't lock my front door.
Yeah. Goes in. Beats someone in the bed.
With blonde hair. It's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah, is it a starting handle off of a car?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, like a
wheel jack
thing.
Yeah. So basically beats it, and then he realises it's a naked woman.
Who's dead?
Who's dead.
He hasn't killed her. She was already dead.
Policeman comes in.
Strangled.
The policeman comes in as well.
Sees him. You feel like,
oh no.
Oh no. But then he goes, shush. Vandervoort comes in with a big trunk.
Yeah.
And the last line is?
Bobby Crush, you're not wearing your tie. The end.
Cut to the box. Brilliant ending. Loved it.
Yeah, it's a great ending. It's a brilliant ending.
But yeah, it does feel very... Bearing in mind how much content they get through the film, it said like 3-4 different films at once. That denouement happens all in about 5-10 minutes, doesn't it? And when you do any kind of basic screenwriting classes, they say the final acts of your film should almost play out in real time.
Yes.
So like the last 15 minutes of the film should be 15 minutes of what in the film's world, as it were. But this is just like, let's just crush it all together really quick.
Yeah. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense where he's asleep in bed, the guy's drugged, he puts on a lab coat, he leaves. He drives somewhere across London. It could be anywhere. He could be in Middlesex. He could be in Northamptonshire. Yes. So it's a very strange patchwork. It's a Frankenstein's monster of a film. Did I enjoy it? I don't know. I think I enjoyed it to a level.
Give us a score then, John. Give us a score. Without me looking up every other score.
And then this is the thing. I have to be relative to other scores. James, what did you score it?
2.
Oh, a 2 from James.
Yeah.
2 out of 5. And how does that compare to Deathline?
Similar. So, in that kind of really intriguing historical artifact, really and great to see, as we discussed, those couple of real kind of vintage Hitchcock moments. But this felt like a weird patchwork quilt film to me that was totally all over the show.
It's very patchy, isn't it? Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to watch it again.
Oh. No, it was much longer than I remembered.
Yeah.
And I think could do an edit of it, which was an hour and a half, and it would make a lot more sense.
Because I watched it twice, because I'm not very good at remembering things, because we were meant to do this, we were going to do this last week. Second time I watched it, I found the first half was like, oh, this is boring. Because the first time I watched it, I completely bought into what they were trying to do. And then it was like, oh, it's not him. But the second half, I really enjoyed. And so I feel like it's one of those films where it's probably it's best going into it cold, and then allow it. It maybe doesn't stand up to rewatching. Also, yes, it's very, very strange tonally, and like you said, John, there's some very questionable points of views. But I think growing up, everyone always, when I started watching Hitchcock films, everyone was saying what a misogynist he was and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And me, just being a naive prick, was like, oh, I don't see that. But then now, as you get older, you go, oh yeah, you can definitely see it, and particularly you can see it in this film. However, talking to you guys about it again, I was going to give it a 3. I'm going to give it a 4 because I really enjoyed it. I thought that just for some of those Hitchcockian little touches, which I think I will always remember. Like those 2 pullbacks. I think the bit with the in the courts where you don't see it, you don't hear it, you only see it. Even though it's the end of this master sort of career, you can still see there's some really good touches, which still are impressive now.
It's not really a horror film, but I think viewed with the loose trilogy that I'm going to call the 1972 trilogy, I would say that it's probably a 2 for me. What did I give AD 1972? Yeah, see, I really like that film. And what was Deathline? That was 2, wasn't it?
2, yeah.
So I'm going to say that this was a 2.5 because I think it's more enjoyable than Deathline. It's a really hard watch, isn't it?
It's a hard watch.
There's apart from The Omen, there's not one where all of us agree on something.
No. That's good.
No, that is good. That is good. That's very good.
I should say one of our listeners and followers on Twitter has written a book about Frenzy.
You're joking.
Yeah, so Devil's Advocates, which I believe is a series of books where they cover different horror films. Yeah. Written by Ian Cooper as one of our listeners. Yeah. So Ian Cooper, who's on Twitter, he's written a book on Frenzy. Yeah. This is someone who's done a lot of research on it, obviously, and loves the film a lot. So if anyone's interested in this film, recommend going to get that book. And
I'd like to see that.
Well done, Mr. Cooper.
Yeah,
well done.
Yeah.
So, but I also did a little bit of research. What other British horror films came out in 1972? I'm going to run them past you, John, to see if you think any of them might be worth doing, if I can find.
So let's make us even more niche than we
exactly.
We
could have done a 1972 podcast. I believe. The Asphyx.
The Asphyx.
Asphyx. Not the Asphyx.
That's a different genre.
Ross, that was a different film that was showing in Soho at the time.
Assmaster.
Yes.
Demon.
It's quite boring. It's quite boring.
Demons of the Mind.
That's an interesting Hammer film. It's very weird and quite boring, but very strange.
The Fiend.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's really good. It's got a really weird intro song, which goes something like "Soak me in his blood, soak me in his blood." And I thought that it was Shirley Bassey singing it, but it's not Shirley Bassey. It's like a Shirley Bassey lookalike. It's
okay, so that's that's a potential for the 2022 season. The Flesh and Blood Show.
Oh, I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Fright.
That's quite a non-specific title, isn't it? Yeah, never heard of it.
Tales from the Crypt.
Yes, I think that's a good one, and I think that's potentially got Tom Baker in it.
Tower of Evil.
Oh, that's dreadful.
Twins of Evil.
Twins of Evil is brilliant. You'll like that, Cleves, because it's got some raunchy, buxom twins. One's good and one's evil, and it's Peter Cushing as like a Puritan,
okay, so
axe-wielding vicar. in like Transylvania.
I'll add that to the list. And Vampire Circus.
That's okay. That's Lalla Ward and Adrienne Corrie, I think, is in it. Adrienne Corrie. It's okay. Again, it's quite boring. It's a latter hammer, so it's a bit like, guys, I've got an idea. Vampire Circus. And it's literally the title, and then it's like, where's the script on the first day? But
okay, well, The Fiend and Twins of Evil are added to the 2022.
I think you'd enjoy Vampire Circus as well, because I do think there's probably some dwarves in it. There's some of those bendy mirrors, and then it all goes a bit sinister. So
I think we've reviewed it now. That's it.
Yeah. Dwarves and bendy mirrors.
Okay, I can't remember what happens next.
Something
horrific.
I've read and watched quite a lot of horrific things this month, but the main thing I've been doing is reading the stories of E.F. Benson, who was the man that wrote the Map and Lucia novels, which are very popular in the 1920s and 30s, or just the 1930s, I don't know.
What's the other one he wrote? Because I've got it, and I started reading it. It was just like some kind of trip.
I don't know. So he wrote an awful lot of horror ghost stories. The book is like a brick. It's called Night Terrors. The one I've got up to so far is called The Outcast. And it's a really, really interesting short story, which is about this lady that moves to a village, and basically no one can stand her. There's nothing actually that they can put their finger on that they don't like about her. But it's a story about reincarnation, and the implication is that someone who she was in a past life was a murderer or some kind of grotesque figure, and that kind of recurring character trait is something that these people can't shed. And there's a really memorable, I think it would make a really good TV drama. There's a really good memorable scene where she's gone to Egypt on holiday, and everyone in this village are like, oh, thank God she's gone, because she just like
gives us the willies.
Yeah. And then basically they find that she's drowned at sea, or she's been buried at sea on the trip back from Egypt
with Osama bin Laden.
But then the wife of the main character is walking down a beach, and her body washes up on the seashore in a body bag. God. And it's really,
it's a nighttime murderer.
Yeah, it's a really, really good, thought-provoking short story. It's one of those short stories that, creates a really powerful imagery in your head.
Sounds good.
And I think it's quite ahead of its time. Another one I was reading of his, and I can't remember the title of it, but it's a definite precursor to the Stone Tape, where rather than the idea of the physicality of a space recording these kind of memories and feelings, there is talk of like cylinders, like wax cylinders recording like memories and stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's not where Nigel Neal got the idea from. Because straight away I was struck with how similar to the Stone Tape it was. So yeah, E.F. Benson, very good.
Cool.
Seen very much in M.R. James's Shadow, and not as good as M.R. James, but did have some really, really good and interesting ideas, and really well worth. If you want a good Christmas ghost story collection, have a look for Night Terrors.
Cool. I have tried to read one of his novels. When people are it's almost like someone just trying to describe a dream they've had. I just couldn't get through that, but the short stories might be a good one to watch.
I read a short biography of him, and it says something like, basically his father was the Archbishop of Canterbury. Ooh. He had a very difficult Victorian upbringing, and one of either his sister or his brother did something like draw did a drawing of his father and then buried it in the ground in the garden and said, "I hate Daddy," or something like that.
Wow.
It just sounds like they had the most intense, mad, like Victorian upbringing.
What I wanted to bring up is that I've been reading Interview with the Vampire.
Anne Rice, yeah.
Ah, yes.
And I've almost finished it, and then Anne Rice was sadly died recently. You know, I was I think I was almost tipping over into Gotham at one point, whilst I was in sixth form. Really got into
I'd
Anne
say
Rice.
that you've never left it more than anything else, please.
Do I look like a goth?
What mark did you give Hellraiser?
I think it was 5 out of 5.
Yeah, there we are.
Exactly. Because I'm not one for rewatching or rereading things, but I'm getting to the point where there's things which I haven't read or watched for like over 20 years.
Yeah,
so I'm
they
able
feel
to,
new.
They feel new. So, for example, I watched Rushmore. That's the Wes Anderson film.
Okay,
I watched Rushmore the other day. Knowing I watched it, it was like I'd never seen it before. And I was like, and my memory must have been the Royal Tenenbaums or something, because it was like, okay, well, I know I've seen this, I can't remember anything about it, and it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. However, reading Into a Vampire, it's as if like I've completely forgotten it until I read and I know what the next page is going to be all the way along, and it's like it's. And she does take fucking ages to get to the point, and it's very, very, like, you know...
Purple prose.
Yeah, worrying about, like, the existence of God and stuff. And I think she did... I think her... my memory was that her child died and she lost her religion, and then she got religion back towards the end of her life.
That's right. She became a born-again Christian.
Yeah, so I've got...
Anne Rice did, all the characters in the
Anne
book.
Rice.
Nice.
And I went to Corfe Castle the other day, and in the National Trust bookshop there, they had loads of Anne Rice Vampire Chronicle books in there for like 50p each. So
I see.
I've nearly got all of them now.
That's a sensible place to have them, isn't it?
So I probably won't read the Christian ones at the end. But yeah, it's good to go back to it. And I do want to go and watch the film again. Although this is one of the only books where often if I see a film of a book, I can't help see those characters when I'm reading it. I'm definitely not seeing Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I watched the film once when Helen and I were on holiday somewhere, and it was absolute shite. It's just dreadful, isn't it? It's that era of Hollywood where it's so glossy that it's just like it's unwatchable almost.
Yeah. But it was that era of when, you know, Bram Stoker's Dracula came in and like suddenly vampires were like everywhere.
It was probably on the back of that success, actually, wasn't it? It was like the year after or something.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, just want to say, you know, rest in peace, Anne Rice, unless you want to come back as a vampire and then, you know, get out there and suck some blood.
Okay.
My quick one for something horrific is something that hasn't been on yet, but it's going to be on Christmas Eve.
Come on, James. I know where you're going with this.
It is... I've forgotten what it's called.
Mezzotint.
Thank you.
Mark Gatiss is the Mezzotint.
Thank you. Yes, it's going to be the Mezzotint, which is the now almost traditional. It's really nice that the BBC have brought this back, and especially hats off to Mark Gatiss for being the man who's kind of spearheaded it. Having a ghost story, usually an M.R. James ghost story, on Christmas Eve, sets the stage beautifully. I really loved a couple of years back Martin's Close, which I still think was
superb,
fantastic. And I'm just really looking forward to this. So by the time this podcast comes out, people will be able to watch it on iPlayer.
Oh, I'm sure,
our international friends will be able to find it by other means. But it's only going to be half an hour. So.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, I'm very looking forward to that. And if anyone didn't hear it, Mark Gatiss did a very nice interview with Nahal again on 5 Live the other day, which was a really quite a long interview, like 20-minute interview. And it was a very informative interview about his writing process and like his inspiration, stuff he'd done with RTD, and how his house has got a secret tunnel. Very interesting interview, actually, where he also someone said to him about The Amazing Mr. Blunden coming out in 1974, and he said, actually, it came out in 1972. And the way he said it, I thought was just like,
he's the man. He's the man.
It was excellent.
Mark, if you're listening, please come on the show.
Yeah, we do love you.
I know you're a friend of John's already, but
well, I met him once in about 2015.
I do feel like he's one of the few celebrities who feel like, if I could get over my nerves, I reckon I could be friends with you.
Yes, he's great.
He's a good guy.
He does some very good impressions of Roger Moore.
Okay, so next time on General Witchfinders, we are going to be covering 2 Christmas horror stories for the BBC. We're going to be covering The Signalman and Warning to the Curious. So join us for that. I was hoping to get out for Christmas. It'll probably be here by the end of the year. But thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much for everyone listening over this year. I think 20...
Have we done a year?
Yeah.
When did we start?
Yeah. We started at the beginning of this year.
Did we really?
We've done 20/21 episodes
Quality.
in that time.
Quality.
So thank you very much for supporting us. I've really, really enjoyed doing this again.
Yeah, very enjoyable.
Yeah. So I'm glad. And off air, I did ask everyone, do they want to carry on doing it? And it does sound like they do. So we hope.
But on air, we're not going to bother.
Yeah. So hope to speak to you all again next year. Have Merry Christmas and a good New Year.
Yeah. Stay safe, everybody. Until next time.
Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas. Love, light, and peace.
Bye bye.
Hooray!
You have been listening to The General Witchfinders. Support the show and continue the conversation at patreon.com/General Witchfinders. Subscribe and spread the word at generalwitchfinders.com. Farewell, and don't have nightmares.
Or did you see that thing I retweeted where people are asking Howard Alfred take that when he was doing like a live Twitter session? So I was asking him, Howard, how long time fan, first time watcher, do you think Barry George is wrongly acquitted of the murder of your dad?
Is he still alive, Barry George?
I don't know if it's Howard off of take that.
I think he went to live on the. I think he went to live on the Isle of Wight, John, as memory serves.
Did he jump there on his roller skates?
I forgot all about that.
Face plant. Or does he do a very painful splits or something? I can't remember.
That's Michael Crawford. I tried to get my kids to watch some of his Draven. And the first thing
I wish we were recording the video of this to put James on.
Oh my
Whereas
God.
The first joke I was having was a joke about asking a nurse to give him a wank in the car park. And
Was this Robbie Williams?
Stop. I feel that we should explain once again for any of our listeners who are not from these shores. She was a kind of very leading British TV presenter, and she was shot outside her home. And there are
it's a horrible story. It's a weird story, isn't it?
And I made a film about it at university for my final piece.
Oh, lovely, right? So there were a number of different theories as to who had murdered her and why and all the rest of it. But basically, because there was so much pressure because she was a media celebrity, the police arrested this guy who clearly had like learning disabilities, a guy called Barry George. But there are two remarkable things about him. Number one is that he told people that he was Freddie Mercury's cousin, and when Princess Diana died, left a bouquet of flowers saying "R.I.P. Diana, Princess of Hearts, love from Barry Bulsara."
Barry Bulsara, not Freddie Bulsara.
open brackets, Freddie's cousin, close brackets. So he was kind of passing himself off as Freddie Mercury's cousin for yonks, which is brilliant. And then also, oh God, again, thinking about it. I'd read about this thing, and then when his conviction was finally overturned, they put this on TV, that at some point in the 1980s, he was trying to raise money for some kind of charity and said, I'm going to jump over a London...
He told everyone he was a stuntman.
Yeah. He told people that he was a stuntman and that he was going to jump over parked London double-decker buses on roller skates.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm going to do it. And the footage is just remarkable. It was kind of like Jackass before its time, that he basically goes down the ramp and immediately just wipes out. And it's just in a crumpled heap on the floor. It's magnificent. Oh, and also, and I don't want to, set John off too much, of course, it's too much trauma, but I noticed the other day they brought out a Blu-ray of Threads.
Oh,
they've remastered it.
I was just going to mention Threads then. Yeah, Christ, Threads.
That level.
Fucking unwatchable, isn't it? Really?
I've still never seen it. And I want to watch it.
That last episode.
It would keep you awake forever. Yeah. I don't think you should watch.
When the wind blows, really upset me. So.
Oh my God.
Well, it's like that turned up to about 1 million.
True. Okay.
Did either of you see Village of the Angels on Doctor Who?
Yes, very good, isn't it?
You should watch it, James. It's
right.
By far the standout episode of the season.
Okay.
The rest of the season is
just
nonsensical.
Yeah, it's just you get to the end and go. When I was watching me, she kept asking questions and I go shh, shh. And I was like, I can't answer any of these questions. And every time we talk, I'm hoping that they might answer it for me. But none of this fucking makes sense.
They build up the baddies, and then they just disappear.
Yeah.
They're really good baddies. And then it's like, they've just disappeared. It's obviously that it's Omega from the Three Doctors, who is made of antimatter. Who is a Time Lord from the same time as Rassilon. He's obviously going to be revealed as the bad guy. But it was just...
But that doesn't mean anything to anyone.
No, I know.
Man. Yeah, but
anyway,
the Angels one and the Sontaran one was good, but the rest of it was just shit.
Time of the Angels is... the ending is filmed in a Neolithic barrow, which is just by Culverhouse Cross, called Tinkin's Wood. And it was really weird to see it on TV, because I've only ever been there on my own, and there's never a soul around. And then it was like, whoa, just to see it with all the angels stood there was really, really weird.
Well, one of the things in this book, there's a barrow near us, which apparently if you go and listen to it at midday, you can hear otherworldly music coming from it. So I'm taking the kids up there to do that. Nice. So Castle Cock, high Victorian medieval inspired interiors of this 19th century fancy are reflected in the interests of John Patrick Crichton Stewart, the third Marquis of blah, blah, blah. Held regular. Okay. He was fascinated by ancient religions, astrology, and the occult, and he held regular seances and telepathic experiments in the estates in Cardiff and Scotland.
Did he?
And served as vice chairman of the Physical Research Council. He used Psychical, sorry. He used his family fortune to leave an impressive archaeological legacy, commissioning architect William blah, 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 blah.
Burgess.
Yeah. The original Castle Cock was a Norman Mott and Bailey castle and later stonekeeper owned by Eiffel Bach in the 12th century. The Welsh leader who kidnapped the Earl of Gloucester and his family, holding them hostage until he recovered the land he'd lost. Bach and his treasures are purportedly buried in a secret chamber under the castle, guarded by two stone eagles who spring to life, who's to scare off grave robbers. The eagles are said to be two of Bach's men, who the nobleman petrified using black magic.
Black magic.
Ooh.
There we go.
Never heard that before. Interesting. And I didn't know he was into psychical research. So, well-known homosexual and the lover of William Burgess, some people say, the architect.
Yeah, so it's a good book. This is
cool.
I was considering getting that. Is it Hellbore or Hellbore?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Hellbore.
They do like a regular sort of magazine. I've got a couple of them. They're good. It's a good thing to And it wasn't expensive. I can't remember how much it was. Like
$7.99.
Yeah, £10 or something like that.
£10.
But yeah, recommend that. Get that.
Yeah,
Cool.
get that. There we are. Well done, Jess.
All right, guys.
Bye,
Thank
Have
you
a
very
lovely
much.
Christmas.
Have a good Christmas if I don't
Yes,
see you
you
before.
too.
Yeah.
Love you
enjoy
lots.